city with all their imagined sophistication, would that they likewise understood what is going on. But you and I understand, of course, first, last, and always, it is about this document, the Constitution of the United States. And you must forgive me. Perhaps it is my old profession of broadcasting, and perhaps for purposes of full disclosure, it's my current endeavor of running for public office. But I guess on one hand, we could call it audience analysis. On the other hand, we could call it snap polling. But I do have a question for all of us assembled here this afternoon. If you have worn the uniform of our armed forces, either in wartime or in peacetime, would you please stand and be recognized by our gathering here today? Thank you all. Thank you all for your service to our country. God bless you. Thank you. And the next question is very similar. If you currently have a loved one in the armed forces, whether stationed stateside or at some far-flung posting internationally, or yes, even in a combat zone. If you currently have a loved one in the military, or if a loved one, a family member of yours, has just recently completed a tour of duty and is a newly minted veteran, would you please stand and be recognized by our assembly? Thank you all very much. I can never begin to, in any way, emulate those who have worn the uniform or sent sons and daughters into harm's way. But I make mention of this for a couple of reasons. For those who stood, who wore the uniform, or for those who have sent loved ones into that experience. There's a commonality, not only of purpose, but at the outset of that involvement. Each of you had the chance to raise your right hand and take an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States. And in some small way, with your help, I was able to emulate that, not with putting my life on the line by any stretch of imagination, but by you giving me the privilege of serving in the people's house. I likewise was honored to stand on the floor of the United States House of Representatives on no fewer than 6 occasions and take a similar oath. There's another reason I mention the distinctions today, because in this very different campaign year of 2010, it should be noted that the man whom I'm challenging for the United States Senate could have stood, were he here, on both occasions. Not only the fact that a new generation of McCains have answered the call to serve in the military, but also, of course, because of our senator's record. I do not believe there is a single person here, I dare say there's not a single Arizonan or American who does not appreciate the service and the very real sacrifice of John McCain. But it is precisely because of the oath he took as a young aviator or as a midshipman at Annapolis. It is precisely because of the oath so many of you took standing in the breach in our military, or those who you helped raise up, who now defend our freedoms, that this challenge has been mounted, because our constitutional republic depends on us as a people settling questions of public policy. And when there are legitimate disagreements over public policy, we make changes through our political process. The challenge is not based on personal animus. It's based on policy disagreements. Mary and I had occasion to be in her hometown. Isn't this? I was down with my own personal homecoming queen at her high school, Copa High School, earlier this week. And it was interesting getting back to that campus where Mary went to school, because it's a brand new campus on the same site. So she went in the auditorium. It was like being in a totally different place. But some earlier words from another human being challenged me. We were there on the initial campaign swing, and another lady came up and said, "J.D., I understand you have some disagreements with the senator, but I fear you're needlessly attacking him. We want to hear what you will do." Fair enough. And that will certainly be part of our time together this afternoon. But as I was hearing from our students who preceded me here in front of you, I just wanted you to think about this. When I point out disagreements, they're not personal, not even political attacks. Rather, and certainly you ladies, and especially one who has just matriculated at the U of A, when you took an essay test, indeed all of us probably encountered times when an essay question would be asked in the following manner. Compare and contrast the responses of person A with those of person B in response to a particular historic event. When I offer that later, please understand I do that in the spirit of comparison and contrasting different positions. But the lady's criticism was valid. It is not enough to point out where two people differ. No, there must be an affirming agenda to explain what you hope to do with the help of fellow citizens upon service in the United States Senate. And my agenda comes directly from the document that so many of us in this room have sworn an oath to uphold and defend, the Constitution of the United States. It begins following that poetic but eminently practical preamble. Article 1, Section 1 of our Constitution reads as follows: "All legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States." But as we have seen, and as I firmly believe, when historians, with the benefit of perspective, begin to write more authoritatively and completely on the history of the 20th century, they will cite, I firmly believe, the rise of the de facto fourth branch of government, the regulatory bureaucracy, as Congress surrendered to executive agencies, either at the cabinet level or the creation of new agencies, in essence, legislative power. You know them all too well, a veritable alphabet soup of acronyms. SEC, FCC, FEC, OSHA, EPA. And if you should run afoul of regulation, you have a situation where sometimes you think you've been convicted of a crime without the benefit of a judge and jury. So how then do we restore the original intent of Article 1, Section 1? Sadly, subsequent employee rules make it nearly impossible to weed out ineffective or tyrannical bureaucrats. How then do we restore the original intent of our founders? As your next United States Senator, I will reintroduce, this time in the Senate, what I introduced for years in the Congress of the United States, the Congressional Responsibility Act, and it will restore the accountability of Article 1, Section 1 in the following manner. Oh, sure, the regulators will continue to dream up regulations because that is how their effectiveness at work is judged by that bureaucracy. But instead of just merely a period of public comment and then seeing those regulations go from proposed regulations to regulations in fact published in the federal record where they carry the weight of law, no, just a simple variation and requirement mandated by the Congressional Responsibility Act. Each proposed regulation will be sent to the House and the Senate for an up or down vote. And in that way, you can hold constitutional officers accountable. And in that way, we can return to the original intent stated in Article 1, Section 1. Now, some of my leftist friends never liked the idea. Maybe if you're a C-SPAN watcher, it's a good cure for insomnia, by the way.